Good evening. The G7 summit is underway in France, with disagreements between the United States and the other member nations over trade threatening to overshadow talks on climate change, the Amazon fires and gender equality. Prime Minister Scott Morrison will begin his official engagements in the coming hours as a special guest of the summit. SBS Europe correspondent Ben Lewis joins me now live from Biarritz. Ben, the areas where the leaders are likely to disagree seem to be coming clearer.
Yeah, that's right, Janice. Good evening. On so many issues, but particularly trade and the environment, Donald Trump seems to be the odd one out here. In some ways, the G7 is more like the G6 plus one. Publicly, at least, President Trump says everything is going fine. He took to Twitter this morning to say, before I arrived in France, the fake and disgusting news was saying that relations with the 6 other countries in the G7 are very tense and that the 2 days of meetings will be a disaster. Well, we are having very good meetings. The leaders are getting along very well, and our country economically is doing great. The talk of the world. But behind the scenes, White House aides are telling us that they feel that President Macron has packed the G7 agenda with what they describe as niche issues in an effort to isolate President Trump. Since Donald Trump took office, the G7 has often struggled to speak with one voice. The US president's America First philosophy has meant common ground is increasingly difficult to find. Emmanuel Macron was once considered Europe's Trump whisperer, but in recent times the relationship between the presidents has been strained.
I will not mention it.
With threats of tariffs on French wine and taxation on America's internet giants.
We actually have a lot in common, Emmanuel and I. We've been friends for a long time, and every once in a while we go at it just a little bit, not very much, but we get along very well.
They might go at it again soon over President Trump's trade war with China.
Nous devons réussir à avoir une forme de désescalade, c'est-à-dire à stabiliser les choses et à éviter cette guerre du commerce qui est en train de s'installer partout.
Even Boris Johnson, who has become a close confidant of the American president during weekly phone calls, insists he won't be afraid to speak his mind when they meet in private.
And on trade with China and on free trade generally, you betcha, we are absolutely.
But you're telling President Trump he should not be escalating the trade war with China.
You bet.
While Mr Johnson had hoped Brexit would fall off the G7 agenda, EU chiefs want to make sure he doesn't forget the clock is ticking.
And I still hope that Prime Minister Johnson will not like to go down in history as Mr No Deal.
The British PM said Mr Tusk could end up becoming Mr No Deal Brexit himself if Brussels doesn't back down over the Irish backstop. French authorities had promised a summit free of extreme violence. On the streets of Bayonne, a few kilometres from Biarritz, police used water cannon and tear gas to disperse anti-globalisation activists. The incident was quickly contained. A much larger gathering of protesters took place across the Spanish border. It was peaceful, a carnival against capitalism. Demonstrators urging G7 leaders to focus less on trade and more on the health of the planet.
Climate change is coming for us, and nobody is doing anything. And it's very important to make a statement.
Climate change will be discussed, as will the fires in the Amazon, Iran's nuclear ambitions, and how to deal with North Korea. There will be plenty of tense moments to come. Trust Britain's new leader to briefly lighten the mood. And in the last few minutes, we've seen the first in-person meeting between Donald Trump and Boris Johnson since the latter moved into number 10 Downing Street. It began with a slightly awkward walk down a very grand French staircase. They met for about half an hour. They seem to be getting along pretty well. Donald Trump said that Boris Johnson is the man to deliver Brexit. They talked about a potential trade deal, and Mr Trump appeared to take a little dig at Theresa May. Take a listen.
Before we were sort of stymied. Well, I was stymied by the other side because nothing got done on the other side, as you've seen from Brexit. This is a different person, and this is a person that's going to be a great prime minister, in my opinion. Boris, it's only my opinion.
No, look, I'm not going to dissent. I'm not going to discourage you.
Scott Morrison is here at the summit in Biarritz. He arrived last night. We'd love to show you some pictures of him, but we were not able to film his arrival at the airport or any activities this morning, though. We have had it confirmed, though, he did go for a swim in the ocean. In a few minutes' time, he'll have a bilateral meeting with Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, and then later today, the White House has confirmed that Donald Trump will have a brief chat with Mr. Morrison. Janice?
Thanks so much, Ben Lewis, updating us from the G7 at the seaside resort of Biarritz.